Hey, have you ever stood in the electronics aisle staring at a full-size tower and thought, I could really use something smaller, but will it actually handle my day-to-day tasks? I've been there. The idea of a tiny desktop that sits on a bookshelf and still feels snappy is tempting, but the fear of ending up with a glorified plugin that stalls when you open a spreadsheet or try to edit a video is real. If you're on the fence about whether a mini PC can replace a bulkier workstation, stick around, this rundown is for you. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the basics. The HP Pro Mini PC packs a 12-core Intel i7-12700T, 16GB of DDR4 RAM, and a 512GB PCIe SSD, all running Windows 11 Pro out of the box. That CPU is the T variant, which means it's designed for lower power draw and quieter operation compared with the higher TK chips you'd find in a gaming rig. In practice, that translates to a system that can breeze through typical office apps, multi-tab browsing, and even light creative work like 1080p video edits or Photoshop tweaks without breaking a sweat. If you've been using an older laptop or a clunky all-in-one, you'll notice the difference in how quickly files open and how responsive the UI feels. Now, why does the footprint matter? The whole unit is about the size of a small book, so it literally slides onto a crowded desk, into a tight home office corner, or even onto a monitor stand with a Visa mount. I've seen people mount these in conference rooms where space is premium, and the discreet silhouette keeps the room looking tidy. The trade-off is that you lose some of the expandability you'd get with a tower. HP includes a decent assortment of ports, a couple of USB-A 3.2 slots for your mouse and external drive, a USB-C with power delivery and data, an HDMI 2.1 output, a DisplayPort for a second monitor, a gigabit Ethernet jack for rock-solid wired networking, and a classic 3.5mm audio combo. For most office setups, you'll have everything you need, but if you rely heavily on legacy ports like VGA or need a dedicated SD card reader, you'll have to bring an adapter. Thermals and fan noise are two things reviewers always flag with compact PCs. Because the i7-12700T runs at a lower TDP, the cooling solution in this Mini is modest A, single 80mm fan that spins up under sustained load. In my testing, idle noise was barely audible, like a faint hum in the background. When I ran a batch of Photoshop actions and a quick export in Premiere Pro, the fan ramped up, but it stayed under 35 dBA, which is comparable to a quiet office air conditioner. The chassis gets warm to the touch after an hour of continuous work, but the heat dissipates quickly once you shut it down. So, if you need a silent environment for voiceover recording, you might want to keep the volume down or place the unit a foot away from the mic. Upgrade ease is a mixed bag. The SSD is mounted on a standard M.2 slot, so swapping it for a larger drive or a faster NVMe model is straightforward. Just unscrew the side panel and pop the old module out. However, the 16 GB of RAM is soldered to the motherboard, which means you can't add more memory later. If you're certain your workflow stays within that 16 GB envelope, say, typical office suites, web development, or moderate photo editing, you'll be fine. But if you anticipate scaling up to heavy multitasking, large datasets, or 4K video timelines, you might hit a ceiling sooner than you'd like. So, who should actually buy this? Picture a freelance graphic designer who needs a dedicated Windows machine for client work but hates the clutter of a tower. Or a remote employee who wants a stable, always-in workstation for video calls, document management, and occasional spreadsheet crunching. Small businesses that want a cost-effective, space-saving computer for each desk can also benefit, especially because HP ships it with Windows 11 Pro, which includes features like BitLocker encryption and remote desktop licensing that are valuable in a professional setting. The price point sits comfortably between a high-end laptop and a mid-range desktop, making it a sweet spot for anyone who values desk real estate but still wants a robust CPU. On the flip side, skip it if you're a serious gamer or a video editor who works primarily in 4K or higher. The i7-12700T doesn't have an integrated high-performance GPU, so you'll be limited to the Intel UHD graphics that can handle everyday tasks, but will struggle with demanding 3D rendering or modern AAA titles. Also, if you're someone who likes to tinker adding extra RAM sticks, installing multiple internal drives, or swapping out a dedicated GPU,